ਭਾਰਤ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰਧਾਨ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਨਰਿੰਦਰ ਮੋਦੀ ਦੀ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਫੇਰੀ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਭਾਰਤ ਤੇ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਆਪਸੀ ਰਿਸ਼ਤਿਆਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੁਧਾਰ ਲਿਆਉਣ ਲਈ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ਾਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋਈਆਂ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਭਰਵਾਂ ਹੁੰਗਾਰਾ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਜਦੋਂ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੇ ਭਾਰਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਮਹੱਤਵਪੂਰਨ ਨਿਯੁਕਤੀ ਕੀਤੀ। ਇਹ ਨਿਯੁਕਤੀ ਸੀ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਰਾਜਦੂਤ ਦੀ ਔਰ ਇਹ ਇਤਿਹਾਸਕ ਕਦਮ ਸੀ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇਹ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰ ਹੋਇਆ ਕਿ ਭਾਰਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਰਾਜਦੂਤ ਉਹ ਬਣੇ ਜੋ ਇੱਕ ਭਾਰਤੀ ਮੂਲ ਦੇ ਉੱਘੇ ਡਿਪਲੋਮੈਟ ਹਨ। ਮੇਰੀ ਮੁਰਾਦ ਹੈ ਮਿਸਟਰ ਨਾਦਰ ਪਟੇਲ ਤੋਂ। ਇਹ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਭਾਰਤੀ ਮੂਲ ਦੇ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਨੇ ਜੋ ਭਾਰਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਾਈ ਕਮਿਸ਼ਨਰ ਬਣ ਕੇ ਆਏ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਉਸ ਸਮੇਂ 'ਤੇ ਆਏ ਨੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਮਿਸਟਰ ਨਰਿੰਦਰ ਮੋਦੀ अपना कनेडा का दौर पूरा करके वापस परते सन। So welcome Mr. Nadir Patel, welcome to Chandigarh and welcome to PDC News.
Well, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So your appointment has come at a time when Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi became the first, I think in almost 4 decades, under bilateral visits to visit Canada. So do you think your appointment to India becomes more challenging than a normal diplomatic assignment?
Well, Prime Minister Modi's visit was indeed the first bilateral visit by a Prime Minister of India in over 4 decades, about 43 years. An extremely successful visit and a great opportunity to have that visit take place early on in my time here. The visit of the Prime Minister was successful in that it provided an opportunity to reset, relaunch the relationship and take it to new heights. And so from my perspective, it's less of a challenge, more of an opportunity to build on the momentum that's been created by our two prime ministers working together to set the stage for a very robust relationship well into the future.
Yeah, because though we always had very good relations with Canada, except for some brief periods after nuclear explosions, but we always enjoyed. But there was some thaw in between, and this visit has cleared the path for rejuvenating what I feel like saying is a rejuvenation of old friendship. Do you think this puts you in a more challenging assignment, because now people of India and people of Canada look towards each other much more hopefully? They expect relations, bilateral trade, and even people-to-people relations to improve. So do you think that challenge is there before you?
It is a challenge, but I'm up for the challenge. I think expectations are high, let's say that. And given those high expectations, it's incumbent upon me, my colleagues at the High Commission, at our consulate here, at our 7-8 offices that we have in India, to really deliver results. So we want to build on the momentum of the visit of Prime Minister Modi to Canada and on the joint statement between Prime Minister Harper and Prime Minister Modi. And absolutely, it's a big task to deliver results. But if there's ever an environment that provides the opportunity to deliver those results, it's now. After this visit, given the mindset that's here in India right now, the opportunities in terms of trade, investment, in people-to-people relations, given the size of the Indian diaspora in Canada, which is the largest on a per capita basis in the world, all the ingredients are there to help address those challenges and really deliver those results.
Yeah, and since a number of agreements were signed and MOU was signed in Ottawa when Prime Minister went there, so what is the latest on that? Are those agreements and MOUs are being implemented, or are they at different stages of implementation?
Well, a number of MOUs were announced during the visit, and those are concluded and now in implementation mode. So for example, when you look at the MOUs that were signed between the National Skills Development Council here in India and a number of Canadian colleges, universities, those institutions are now looking at how to operationalize those, what sectors would be focused on skills development, technical skills, relating it to educational needs here in India, and looking at the capacity that Canada has to offer. In terms of some of the commercial deals, there was another opportunity where we saw just under $2 billion worth of new commercial contracts announced. Uranium is a really good example. Now the focus shifts from executing delivery of uranium to India from Canada, and that first shipment should take place in the coming months as well.
All right. So in a couple of months. So first
coming months. That's right. Yeah.
Right. So because this was very important issue, uranium supply of nuclear fuel to India, and India and Canada have also been talking about clean energy, right? So are there any other areas where Canada and India are working jointly on having clean energy?
So if you take the nuclear ecosystem to begin with, so uranium was one step in renewing that relationship, and Prime Minister Modi talked about nuclear energy as part of India's clean energy future. So on that, what we're doing now is looking at other opportunities with the ecosystem in the nuclear industry in Canada to look at what might be possible here. For example, training and capacity building, nuclear waste management. The majority of nuclear reactors in India are based on CANDU technology. So there's an opportunity to expand Canada's footprint in that. And so this is one good example in addition to uranium. In fact, later this year in October, there is a Canadian nuclear industry delegation coming to India to further explore broader opportunities. In other areas in clean energy, we look at solar as a good example. On the margins of Prime Minister Modi's visit to Canada, there was an announcement of $1 billion joint venture arrangement between Canada's AMP Solar, and the Sun Group here in India, and that is now in the stages of full implementation. Canadian Solar is another company that has had some success and is looking at opportunities here as well. So solar technology is another area where you have a lot, and that
renewable as well as natural and clean energy are the
exact
first areas
for
better relationship and coordination.
Yeah, and there are other areas where we have capacity in those technologies as well.
Yeah. Other area which is of importance to India in general and this region in particular is the agriculture, both agro-processing and even pulses cultivation. So some time back we had a premier of Saskatchewan here. So on pulses cultivation they were very keen to help India. So are there any companies, Canadian companies interested in coming to India and imparting know-how to Indian farmers, farm experts, and also on agro-processing and food processing industry, because in India we need more and more expertise on that?
I think this is an area that there is some cooperation, but the potential to further expand that is very significant, and this has been discussed at the senior levels of government. On the agri-food, agri-export side, a large percentage of our exports from Canada to India are in fact pulses, including lentils and peas, agricultural products. And we'll continue to explore ways of expanding that. But on the technology side, we see a lot of opportunity for innovation, cold storage, food processing. We have opportunities where we can look at Canada's technology to optimize yields, expand crop management opportunities, and this is something that's very, very actively being pursued right now. I think food processing, agri-food products can form one of the pillars of the relationship in terms of opportunities going forward, and we're focused on that quite significantly.
Yeah, and one more area which Punjab especially is looking towards Canada is skill development. Because lots of Punjabis, they immigrate to Canada, and if they go with basic skills which are required in Canada, it will help their rehabilitation very on footing. Are there any plans or any of the Canadian institutions or universities coming here, setting up their campuses or training centers, or sending the experts here to work on skill development centers here?
It's a combination of all of those. So right now our goal is to expand the educational relationship. There's 46,000 students from India studying in Canada right now, but what we would like to do is expand the educational linkages to include students from Canada studying in India, research collaboration, faculty exchanges, joint academic programs. Then of course, one big part of the expansion is skills training vocational skills, technical skills, polytechnical skills as well. The MOUs that were signed during Prime Minister Modi's visit really engaged in that area. And so we talked about this today with chief ministers and with others about how we could bring some of a focus on skills development here, because part of this is feeding into things like the Make in India campaign, developing capacity and manufacturing opportunities as well. Right now, about 1/3 approximately of students studying in Canada from India are actually in vocational type technical programs, so we can expand that for sure.
And coming back to again energy sector, the Saskatchewan Premier was saying they have huge quantity of coal, and you must have read in newspapers some days back that Punjab is importing coal from South Africa. But is there any possibility of this natural fossil fuel, the coal, coming from Saskatchewan to Punjab or India?
We have a coal industry in Canada, and with a particular focus on coking coal, more for the steel industry, more than anything else in terms of opportunities we've been exploring quite significantly. So there is certainly opportunity to further expand our exports in that sector into India. And we know that we are competing with other countries around the world, but the demand here is quite significant. And whatever we are doing now, there's the potential to expand that. We've had some discussions both in Delhi and elsewhere on trying to focus on that a little bit more. And so there's a good example where we could in fact increase our two-way trade and investment numbers between Canada and India.
Yeah. Mr. Patel, before we take our conversation further, we'll have a small break, just for a minute. ब्रेक तो बाद तुहाडा फिर स्वागत है इस खास मुलाकात विच। असी मिस्टर नादिर पटेल नाल गल कर रहे सी भारत ते कनेडा दे संबंधां दी और किस तरह कनेडा भारत दी मदद कर सकता है। Mr. Patel, so we are just talking about the coal and other areas. There is another area where Canada and India can help each other or cooperate with each other. That is the shale gas. Canada has done some work, and some of the Canadian companies came and they looked at possibility of finding shale gas in northeast India. Any further development on that?
I think Canada does have shale gas reserves. There is a discussion on the part of companies that are interested in exploring what opportunities may be available there. When it comes to traditional energy, when we're talking about oil and gas, I think the relationship has potential to expand cooperation in that regard. India needs oil and gas. Canada has those reserves, both oil and gas. And I know there are discussions that take place about the possibilities not only of investment both ways, but also for the movement of product. And that's something that is very actively under discussion. And this is one of the things that I'm focused on right now is how do you build on the momentum that the visit of Prime Minister Modi has created in order to turn these opportunities into results. And these areas that you're focusing on are all areas that we have an opportunity to expand further.
Yeah. And when you came to India, you must have realized and have some grassroots knowledge now, okay, what India is good at and what Canada is good at. So what are the other areas on which you are working where we can, both India and Canada, benefit from each other? Well,
trade and investment continues to be our primary focus, and there are sectors there that we could do a little bit more on. I mentioned education already. We want to deepen cooperation on education. Science and technology, there's a fair bit of opportunity there where we can share expertise that both Canada and India have to further advance science and technological initiatives. Healthcare is another area where there's a need for hospitals, medical technologies, medical devices, pharmaceuticals, where we have a lot of capacity in Canada that we could in fact explore a little bit further. So that's another area that's come up. Some other areas, including some that were mentioned in the joint statement between the Prime Ministers, including cooperation in space technology, launching satellites. We have a lot of capacity and ecosystem supporting satellite development and technology there in Canada as well. Defense cooperation, increasing our cooperation, our trade in defense technologies, as well as defense research. It's another area that we're exploring. Of course, the non-trade and investment would also include security cooperation, the well-being of our citizens, culture, sport, something that's of interest to both you and I. You know, this is the year of sport in Canada. We have the Women's World Cup right now. The Pan Am Games are going to launch soon. We talked about developing some cricket opportunities between Canada and India, so we can capitalize on the talent that's here in terms of promoting cricket in Canada. We signed the co-production film and television co-production agreement, audiovisual co-production agreement a few years ago. So there's a little bit of cooperation right now in the film and television sector. So one thing we certainly want to do is, while we continue to focus on trade and investment, let's ramp up some of the other areas that we haven't been focusing on as much and try to ensure that the relationship is balanced as best as it can.
Yeah, and of late, if we look at Canada and India, there are lots of people, Indian investors as well as Indian businesses, showing interest in investing in Canada, as well as Canadian companies coming back and investing in India. Same time, people are also going as visitors. So, how is the demand for visas? Are the change in laws helping people to visit Canada more frequently and explore possibilities both on cultural and as well as investment fronts? So what has been your experience after coming to India?
Well, two things I'll mention. First, on investment, we're trying hard to increase the two-way investment between Canada and India. And I think there's opportunity to grow quite a bit. A number of Canadian firms and pension funds have expressed an interest in increasing significantly investments here in India from Canada. But the one thing that we are trying to conclude is a foreign investment protection agreement between Canada and India. And once that is concluded, that would be a mechanism to stimulate increased two-way investment. So we're very hopeful that a deliberate focus on concluding that soon will sort of yield results. In terms of immigration and movement of people and visas, we've made significant changes to modernize our immigration visa system over the past few years, with a number of new programs and number of opportunities for improved service through electronic media as well. And what we found is that Canada remains committed to focusing on immigration and will continue to need talent from abroad to meet our growth needs going forward. And and so that isn't going to change. We've made it easier to apply for visas. We've made it we've facilitated the movement of people.
Also?
And in terms of business, as an example, yes, we've made a number of changes to modernize the system. We've made it easier. We still are one of the most flexible regimes relative to most of our peers around the world. And we're turning around visas a lot quicker than we were before. We've introduced new programs, both for business as well as permanent residency as well, such as express entry. We've introduced a startup visa for entrepreneurs, a program there. So a number of new innovative programs. And India is one of, if not the top country of immigration to Canada. So that'll continue to be the case. That'll continue to be the case for the foreseeable future, is my sense.
And your interest is in sports, my interest is in sports. But I don't find any agreement on helping each other in the field of sports. Do you think we have a lot of potential, as you mentioned, cricket, field hockey, wrestling, weightlifting, even basketball now, that Canadian boy of Punjab region played in NBA. So another guy is ready. So are there areas where we can cooperate with each other in sports preparation, sports psychology, sports infrastructure?
I think sport has the power of bridging communities, countries, and really bringing close countries even closer together. On cricket, our former foreign minister had announced some funding for promoting cricket development in Canada. So we've had some discussions with BCCI here to how we can capitalize on bringing cricket capacity to Canada. We're looking at ideas such as cricket camps and clinics. We do hockey clinics, we do hockey camps. Why can't we do cricket camps and try to promote that in Canada? So we're looking at that right now. On hockey, the National Hockey League Players Association has had different programs where they've donated hockey equipment up in Ladakh, for example, and there's an opportunity to bridge that a little bit further. There is a nice hockey team here that needs support, and we'll be able to help promote the sport here as well. Basketball is a good example. Sim Bular, who was here, Sacramento Kings in the NBA, and he's first Canadian of Indian origin to play in the NBA, and he's done a phenomenal job promoting the sport here as well as in Canada. So we'll continue to use some of those examples because that is an opportunity to bridge Canada-India relations.
You were here and you met also the Punjab Chief Minister, Mr. Prakash Singh Badal. So how was the meeting? How you now, after the meeting, how you evaluate it? Was it friendly, helpful, and were any proposals discussed at the meeting for better relationship between a country and a state?
First of all, the meeting was extremely warm and friendly. I was welcomed in a way that was just very, very warm and unprecedented. So I really appreciate the welcome I received here. The Chief Minister, as well as myself, reaffirmed the important relationship between Canada and Punjab, Canada and India, and we mutually agreed to continue to further bolster collaboration in fields such as education, agriculture, agricultural technologies, and see how we can further become a little bit closer in terms of some tangible results. And I think that's very, very important. We also discussed the fact that the Premier of Ontario will be visiting in India in early February and will come here as well. And I think that'll be a very important opportunity for further relationship building as well as looking at new results, tangible results in the overall relationship between not only Canada and India and Punjab, but also between Ontario and Punjab. So we certainly look forward to expanding that a little bit further.
Yeah. Then last question. Canada, there have been lots of cases where people try to go to Canada by fraudulent means, and Canadian government and High Commission have been seeking help from Punjab Police to check those frauds. So what is the latest on that? Are you getting full cooperation from Punjab Police and Punjab government and other state governments on this issue?
Well, this remains an issue of importance to Canada, of significant importance and concern. The far majority of individuals who apply to enter Canada do so properly without any issues, and we're very, very happy to welcome those that are approved through legitimate means. When we do have these issues around fraud, we take them very, very seriously. There has been a commitment on the part of the Punjab government to help as well. There was some legislation that was being brought forward to help address the issue. There has been an opportunity for consultants to register, and there is a deadline that we provided that's been extended. So there are various initiatives and facilitation that's been taking place to help navigate some of those issues, and we're certainly grateful for the fact that the government has taken this very seriously, and we will continue to do our role as well with respect to enforcing document integrity and ensuring that fraud is not tolerated at all. So,
thank you very much for taking your time for our viewers, and it was nice talking to you, and we wish you all the best, and we hope to see you more often in Chandigarh. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
So, दर्शकों, तुहानू किद्दां लगी ये मुलाकात? अपने विचार सानू जरूर लिख के भेजना। साडा पता है feedback@ptcnetwork.tv। सानू तुहाडे विचारां दा इंतज़ार रहेगा।